Hello and welcome back to the fourth episode of From Start to CEO. You might have noticed that I'm in a slightly different backdrop this episode, and the actual episode was recorded back in the UK, but basically what's happened over the past few weeks, I got the opportunity to travel with my business, which has been my dream really for the past, 6 months or so, and then I'm finally being able to do it now. But anyway, this episode is episode 4 with Gerry Thompson. Gerry has built his career around storytelling, creative coaching, and then also really helping others turn their ideas into published work. And in this episode, we really talk about the journey he went through from studying architecture to writing these best-selling books, and also how he's also supported other authors in the same journey and has adapted his business throughout. We also talk about the power of networking, which is a topic that I resonate with, and the rise of self-publishing in an industry that's typically been published by big companies. So yeah, let's get into this conversation. So hi, Gerry. Yeah, thank you for coming on. I believe this will be the 4th episode coming out. So yeah, really looking forward to it. But I usually just start off these episodes by asking you a bit about how did you get into what you're doing? So I know you sort of are in the writing space. So how did you get into that really, and what interested you in writing at the beginning?
Yeah, well, actually, my interest in writing started at primary school in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I wasn't a confident young student, but I really loved writing. I had a great teacher who interested me in grammar, English language, essays, stories, and I just loved doing that stuff.
Yeah,
And so the kind of passion for writing as something I could do and loved doing started then.
yeah,
And I went on through grammar school and did some writing associated with other subjects, studied literature and history and things like that, where you did
nice.
quite a bit of writing yourself.
Yeah,
Then I went to university and became an architect, which was kind of a different pathway. Um, but when I came to work as an architect after qualifying, I did a job that included quite a bit of writing up research and writing articles. So the writing continued to be in
wow.
there. And then I had some career changes. I decided I didn't want to stay in architecture,
Yeah.
more of a people person. I was a shiatsu practitioner.
Well,
Uh,
what's that again? A shiatsu practice?
Shiatsu is a Japanese body work where you treat kind of acupuncture points, but with through clothing and with fingers, like
Yeah,
acupressure.
yeah.
And even in that, a publisher asked. I got an agent, and a publisher rang them and said, "We need a shiatsu book because Diana's kind of all over this subject."
Yeah,
And can you start tomorrow? Kind of very fortunate. So I
yeah,
wrote I wrote a shiatsu book, which was very successful, a big bestseller, translated into all the European languages. And with that agent, I started writing some other books, which
yeah.
came out by 1994.
Something I wanted to ask you is like at the start you mentioned that you had a teacher that got you into writing, and something I relate to that point is when I was in school, the only thing I enjoyed was business, and that's basically because I had a really good business teacher who got me excited about it. So do you think, I know now you're obviously it's almost come a bit full circle where you're now helping writers. Do you think that is a really key important thing to actually have someone that at that early stage that's inspiring people? Do you reckon that helped you as well?
Yeah, I think it is very helpful. I mean, the unfortunate thing is it's not really something you can choose or set up, but I
Mm,
think you can be open to. Uh, I mean, surround yourself with, include in your circle people who know you and can tell what you're good at and support you in doing the things you're good at and the things you love doing and the things that create value and can maybe become viable career path.
mm,
So I think that is a very helpful element, and it continues beyond school age. I mean, the whole process of career advice in schools in my day was pretty hopeless. It was like, very kind of like, oh, if you're not very clever, oh, you can become a lorry driver, or,
Yeah.
it was kind of
With
very
the-
stereotypical and not very profound.
Yeah.
But they're probably better at it these days with their advice to people and
I
mentoring.
think so. Yeah, 100%. Because what I've had with my sort of education system, I think at the start, obviously they try to keep it quite broad, but now with when I've came into university, actually helping me in thinking, like pushing me in different ideas where I want to go is something that I've found useful. And honestly, it links back into that people around you. I think the thing I've got lucky with is when I came into university, I got a course which was business for entrepreneurship, and that whole thing is surrounding around you setting up your own business. But it wasn't just the course; it was the stuff outside it and the people that the course almost lecturers got me connected to, and then it got me on this motion where now I'm speaking with, almost like speaking with you today. It's like it's helped knowing people is what I've found in my journey, especially from the start. Do you think
Yeah.
that your network is something that's helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think so, and I think networking is a crucial activity in a number of ways for people moving forward, creating their own business. It's on the one hand, it's the element you're talking about, which is um, getting support and encouragement and learning about yourself and your skills. But nowadays also your network of the contacts you have and the people you can reach and the followers and so on are a crucial aspect as well.
Do you think there's a balance in between doing almost a traditional networking where you're going to networking events and sort of getting your face out there in the local community and actually almost doing the work and trying to figure out your strategies in house? Do you reckon there's a balance in between the two, or do you think when you're starting off your almost business journey, you should focus on the networking side?
I I think yeah, I think both can be important. It depends uh, what particular niche you're in, really. I think some types of work or project will suit one-to-one networking at old-fashioned in-person events,
Mm.
and others like if you sell something locally,
Yeah,
uh, um, or if you need local contacts and collaborators and as well as markets, then I think those in-person ones are good. If you're doing something more generic, that's kind of broad, like you've launched a book
yeah,
or something wider than that, then I think that's not such an important thing. But as you go through life, it's good to watch out for bumping into people who will be helpful.
yeah,
We human beings are like that. We are helped by other people, and we like to help other people. And just an exchange in an elevator with your elevator pitch with one key person who's
yeah,
in a random hotel somewhere could lead to your big career break. So
yeah,
it's always good to be open to people around you, but especially if you work on your own, that social aspect is very important.
yeah. I think it's the thing I found with the networking is maybe not necessarily like direct sales straight away, but there is that sort of those building sales and actually what you need to keep your business growing. But it's more the fact where I've spoke to people from a range of different business environments, and we've just had a conversation about what we do and just bouncing different ideas which you wouldn't have usually thought about. And even though someone can be in a completely different almost business environment, like niche space, whatever it is, to where you are, I've found that actually anyone who's gone through that process has some different advice and everything's valuable. And then you can have, as you say, you can have just one random conversation and then you can put you in a completely different direction almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be great to speak about so what you're sort of doing today specifically.
Yeah.
So what your business is now.
Yeah, so from kind of writing my own books, I wrote a lot of nonfiction books, mainly and some of them were very successful, some of them were humorous. I'd started to be asked by people, can you help me with your book? Because I had experience of the industry, a lot of people nowadays want to write a book, and a lot of people can benefit from writing a book, even in any kind of business. A, a book or other writings can be very helpful in promoting yourself, and having like a book can be like a visiting card to give somebody. It lends authenticity. It shows your field,
Mm.
and often choosing a niche is a very important aspect of career, and then reaching the people within that. And I just found that I was able to, after my one-to-one work with people about their health and well-being, I was used to kind of having one-to-one conversations, like
Mm.
a kind of counseling, with people about what's the problem with the book. Maybe they don't know we're not sure quite what their idea is, or they don't know how to develop it, or they've written some material and they want feedback, or they've got obstacles, or they're having trouble with motivation or
Yeah.
sticking to it and discipline. So that kind of one-to-one support is helpful. Plus, I also run groups for people who want to write a book. They're
Hmm.
often in-person or online groups
Yeah.
where there's a group of people together supporting each other and being supported by me in moving their projects forward. So that's kind of where I am now. I also do quite a bit of copy editing for my agent, and also writing, making story novels into scripts, movie scripts.
Yeah.
So it can kind of become a jobbing writer as well.
I get you. So so your business specifically, is it almost that holistic support around writing? So when typically who would come to you? Would it be someone who's got an idea for a book or they've already started writing it?
It's very varied. In the current group, the Write Your Book group, there are 8 people. Some of them are really. I've had this idea for a crime novel in which, the detective is like an insect or something,
Yeah.
and I'm just thinking how to develop it. Others have got further down the line. It really could be anywhere, and the group works because the group works with people at different stages, because
Mhm.
there are a lot of recurring elements that apply to everybody, and everybody can give feedback on what do you think of this piece. We
Yeah.
use WhatsApp as a medium for submitting pieces, especially if
Hmm.
somebody can't come, or if they can't get over for the class, they can join. They can join by WhatsApp, and so
Yeah.
using those new media as well, to me relatively new,
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Because
it's all worked in.
it's almost like it's. Have you found there's a balance in between doing stuff online and in person? That is there almost, because obviously in person is always better, but it's sometimes not possible. Do you reckon there's how much better do you think is in person over doing stuff online?
Yes, I think there is a difference, and again, you're not in the position to make the choice. So both are valuable. I find a lot of my one-to-one clients don't live near me.
Hmm.
They might live, in a distant country. So online connection is very valuable for that. Um, so, but the media have improved so much. I think a one-to-one conversation like we're having now
Yeah.
in geographically different locations can be very effective, and the people watching and people participating have got used to that. But where you can meet somebody in person, there's a special extra level of possibility, I think,
100%. Yeah, I think the
like dating.
yeah, over. I've not done any dating over Zoom or anything like that. I didn't even think that was a thing, but um, yeah, because I've found that how I'm setting my stuff up is trying to keep it fully remote, but there's almost a nice balance in between seeing people in person and working online. What so how would people find you then? Is there a community type of group? You mentioned that you've got the groups before. Is there almost a community that you're building?
Yes, I mean, I use different ways of connecting with people, or people find me in different ways. There's quite a bit of word of mouth. Previous clients will be asked by others, and that may lead to word of mouth spreading, which I think is one of the top ways of being heard about, in
Mm.
any business. I have a website for my writing and writing support, and I use a certain number of social media, like old-fashioned Facebook and
Yeah.
so on. And but I also use traditional media, like getting stuff put in newspapers, which are still always looking for stories, especially local events. I
Yeah.
think local newspapers or corresponding news websites,
Mm.
can be very good for telling. If you have a story, and especially if you have a story that's linked to an event in time,
Hmm.
journalists online or traditional love that. They say,
Mm.
in May, Gerry will be launching a new series of his Write Your Book group, or you know, Tim's got this book out. It's coming out on the 21st of January, and
Yeah.
they'll want a story. So if you can, in any business, if you can find events that are certain in certain time, I've got a new product, or there's a beta version of this going out,
Yeah.
then it's a story, rather than I'm still doing what I was doing before kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I wanted to link back onto publishing slightly because that's something which I've from obviously our conversation we had before. We mentioned about how publishing has changed over time. Would you be able to speak about like quickly? Is it mainly self-publishing now over publishing, like going to publishers, or is it still very much using the bigger publishers and getting publishing deals? How has it sort of changed?
Yeah, that's one area. I mean, time I've been in the business, publishing has changed hugely. Uh, I mean, it used to be relatively straightforward to come up with a book idea and find a publisher and get it published, as long as you're reasonably confident. And now it's much more competitive. So the things that changed, publishers are much more demanding. They're trying to get surefire hits,
Mm.
and they want something that's the same as something that worked really well, or if it's a new author to them, they want a huge social media following, and they want guaranteed success.
Yeah, yeah,
And they really often will only look at things sent by agents. So you try and get an agent, it's become much more difficult to get an agent.
mm,
A lot of publishers won't look at a manuscript sent in on spec to
yeah,
what they call the slush pile. So one of the new things that come into that situation, as you say, is self-publishing, and that enables people and I think the gold standard would still be to find a publisher who will do your work if you
yeah,
have that going for you. And I often help people with their submissions to publishers or to agents. But it is a good option to publish yourself, and quite a lot of authors have done well out of. Quite a lot of business people have done books, and if you know the field, you know your niche, you know where the market is, or you're very skilled at using media like Amazon,
yeah,
you can do well at it. But a lot of poor books are published, and it's very important to make sure your book doesn't look like a self-published book. There's
yeah,
a whole series of information online of how to make a self-published book look like it's not a self-published book.
yeah,
But other things have changed as well along with that. And one of the big things is print on demand. And this has revolutionized publishing. The old model is you go to, if you say you're publishing yourself, you go to a printer, you'd say, I want 3,000 copies of this because 3,000 is much cheaper per copy than 1,000.
mm,
And you have to pay up front, and you get them printed, and you're not quite sure how they'll come out, although you will see proofs. Print on demand means that the book is never published until somebody has ordered it and paid for it. The classic Amazon they didn't invent that model, but they're very good at it and they're the
Yeah.
biggest at it. And so it's great. It's great for self-published authors. You can get a copy of the book, and when printed, you can look at it. You can make
Mhm.
changes. You can get another edition, and then you can launch it. It can be sold in different countries, and it's also a more sustainable model because books are not printed, shipped around the world, and if so, unsold, pulped or
Yeah.
left in somebody's attic.
Yeah.
And so, like, your Australian customers can buy it printed in Australia and post it to them in Australia.
Is it
Uh,
more affordable for the self-publishers?
yeah,
Is it a lot
it
more
is.
affordable? Yeah.
Yes, it is. You, of course, if you went through like Amazon, they take their cut
Mm.
um, so like per copy sold. Uh, there's the cost of printing for Amazon, there's Amazon's profit, and then there's the rest left to you, which is still, it will still be a bit higher than what you get per copy of a book sold by a publisher. But of course, the publisher deal can have beneficial promotion and
Yeah.
distribution
Yeah.
and being in bookshops, and bookshops don't like self-published books. So
Hmm.
there are pros and cons, but if you have to do self-publishing, there are benefits. And if you order bulk stock from the publishing partner like Amazon, you get and then sell them yourself,
Yeah.
you can get quite a high return per book.
Okay.
And so if you can sell them in person, like going around giving talks, promoting yourself, and having a book is a great way of getting to do talks because people still think, oh, they've written a book on it, they must know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
respect.
Exactly. How does it work with? So, say for example, I'm writing a book and I somehow go to a publishing firm and they like the book and they want to print it. Versus, I want to go and publish the book, like self-publish it myself. How do those two different models work? Does the publishing firm almost take ownership of that book, or is it still yours? Or if you self-publish, are you then the full owner of that and sort of keep it as your own business almost?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the in both cases, the copyright will remain yours.
Hmm.
In the case of having a contract with the publisher, you are for a period giving them the right to sell the book on your behalf on terms you've agreed,
Yeah.
like profit per copy and where they'll sell it and so on. So, and they will take the turnover and they will give you an agreed percentage of that. But the copyright remains yours,
Hmm.
and if the book goes out of print or they're not actively selling it, you have the right to get it back and um, you take it to another publisher
Yeah.
or sell it yourself, publish it
So it's
yourself.
almost like licensing, I
It
guess.
is a license, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
That's cool. Another thing is completely sort of almost shifting the subject there, but another thing I really wanted to get your viewpoint on was AI in writing, because obviously things with like AI. What's the AI term for when it's like language? I guess it's like language models. I can't remember the specific term for those AI, but say like ChatGPT stuff like that, where like you put a prompt in it, it generates copy. How do you think that has affected writing and the writing industry? Do you think it should be used, or are you like, no, it should be kept traditional? You write it yourself. You shouldn't use AI at all. What sort of end of the spectrum are you on that sort of
Well,
viewpoint?
again, it's there, it's happening. There's no point in saying it shouldn't be happening or we must stop it. I think really that, I mean, you can campaign about it, and some of the authors' organizations are campaigning, especially about theft of material, because AI people are looking at published material and stealing the content and then making money out of it to others. And at a legislative level, that maybe something can be done about that. But at the level of how do you relate to it as someone yourself who wants to do a book, I I to me, the key thing, it can be very helpful for certain aspects of writing, um, like research or generating material that's not. What the weakness is where a lot of books, it's about your individual voice as an author,
Mhm.
especially fiction, but also to a degree with other books, autobiography, memoir, even some non-fiction subjects, like
Yeah,
how, how I made a million inventing a new plumbing fitting and selling it in Southeast Asia.
yeah,
Uh, the individual voice is important, and AI cannot do that at present. It tends to have a bland, predictable feel, which you can at the moment spot. But it's getting better and better. But I never advise my clients or students to 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 do the final writing of the material. They might use AI to generate ideas and
hmm,
content and maybe certain points you want to make, but it's better to write them in your own style, I would
yeah.
say.
That's sort of where I sit as well with my viewpoint towards it, because I use it for almost dummy website copy and like dummy, like say I'm trying to think of ideas for social media posts and stuff like that where I'm writing those. I almost use it to lay out what points I could hit, what maybe it's like keywords I can hit on the website, or say for example in the copy saying what articles I can mention about in there. And then actually once I've got all those sort of materials laid out, then I use it to write, and I found that actually that's gives it almost, because especially with what I'm doing is I'm writing stuff almost under my personal brand and my keeping my tone of voice. So if I then go out and write copy that is clearly AI, it's sort of this like this. It seems disingenuous, really, a little bit, doesn't it?
There is actually a backlash going on. When you look at some posts and some videos on a platform like Facebook, there's a lot of people saying, this is AI. I don't
Mm.
want this stuff. So I think as AI improves, our ability to discriminate will remain and maybe sharpen also.
Yeah,
So there there's there will be extra kudos for people who are genuine, I think,
I
which
think so.
is, you know,
The
thing.
worrying thing part, like the worrying part of it, will be when it sort of gets to the point where it can start writing a bit more humanized, and that'll be when it's like when it's harder to spot. But I
Yeah,
think it's almost like it can never replace an individual human, because everyone's got different characteristics with like where they grew up, how they write, why they write certain ways, and it's so like unique that you can't replicate, say for example, one person, but it might get to the point where it can sort of do it on a similar level, but it'll still never be the same.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Something just a sort of the final points I love to speak about is your sort of highs and lows, both sort of professional and personal, because I think that's such a key point in almost like, I guess, inspiring, but telling people about your story and like showing them where you've come from a little bit. But just to sort of start off, what would you say like during your business journey the low points have been? Do you reckon there's any that stand out specifically?
Yeah, I think when we were coming up to the COVID time, or we were just, I think I had so some of my business wound down a bit then. I was doing quite a lot of group trainings, and that sort of stopped really
Yeah.
in its tracks. And I think had been a bit winding down that way of doing things. And I found it psychologically a challenging time, and just morale and, you know, emotional well-being. And I kind of wondered if I would even write another book myself, which is a strange thing to think of now. And I've had a wild garden in my house uh, on the south coast for a long time, for about 20 years, and I started to spend much more time looking at what was happening in the garden with all the amazing creatures that were in it, and
Yeah.
remember how special it was. And I started doing a journal, and after about a year of the journal, I realized I'd got a lot of emotional benefit from that. And why didn't I make it into a book? So I
Mm.
collaborated with, and here's like using new media, I collaborated with a illustrator in Belarus
Hmm.
and with a uh, Amazon book designer in uh, Bangladesh,
Okay.
and sort of did a collaboration job where we produced a very beautiful illustrated book. I had some interest from publishers, but they were saying, "Yeah, we don't want to do it that way. We want to do it this way. It'll take 3 years." So I
Mm.
just decided to self-publish,
Yeah.
which I hadn't done before, and it's been a very good experience. And the joy that it's amazing. I've been amazed, really delighted how much people have got from reading the book, and it's kind of continuing to sell, which that doesn't always happen with self-published books. Quite often you sell to the circle of people, and everybody's bought it. So, but it
Yeah.
has this continuing appeal, and people just saying lovely things about it. People
That's brilliant.
stopping me in the street and saying, "Oh, I really like your book. I read it through, and now I'm reading it day by
Yeah.
day through the year of the
That's
journal."
really cool.
So
That's really cool.
that was a low point, and now some high points.
Yeah, you've managed to turn that into a high, which is, yeah, is really nice. Have
It's
you?
an interesting principle for business how, and people like Branson say this all the time, that the lowest moments can be turned around, and don't be afraid of failure, don't they?
100%. I think that's a great point to leave it on to be honest, that almost is an inspiring quote. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. Yeah, I do really appreciate it. And yeah, it was great to have a further, like, deeper conversation.
Thank you, Adam. I enjoyed speaking to you, and I hope that people watching will find it valuable and maybe get in touch if they want
Yeah,
to.
yeah, definitely. I'll leave all your links and everything in the description
Great.
anyway.
Thank
So
you very much.
touch.
Really
Yeah,
enjoyed
no,
it, Adam.
take care.
Bye.
Bye. And that's it for episode 4 from Start to CEO. I just want to say a massive thank you to Gerry Thompson for speaking about his journey. The thing I loved about our conversation is I learned so much about the writing industry, which is an industry I don't have a clue on really. And that's what I love from Start to CEO, is to get a different perspective from a range of different industries really. Learning from conversations you wouldn't usually get to listen into. If you did enjoy this episode, please drop us a follow and leave us a review on Spotify, as it does really help push us to the audience we want to help out. And also, please share this to your friends who you think might enjoy this episode and future episodes like this. So I've been Adam Waters, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.